So I think that we are in a good position, but people are dying. Even at this moment, people are dying when we are talking to you, and they are dying on the front line. And this is horrible. But again, the war has several layers, and one of that layer is kind of the discourse. In philosophy, I have philosophical MA in philosophy, in history of philosophy. There is this term discourse. It's like a narrative, and it seems to me that currently all the narratives that I read in the Western newspapers, in Western news websites, and so on, we are losing that front. So we are losing that side because, as you mentioned in Ukrainian before, people, they are just, they're talking about Ukraine without Ukrainians.
Yeah, and
it's another like idea that the Russian propaganda wants us Ukrainians and the world to believe in, that this is Putin. No, this is not Putin, not merely him, because he had like from 60 to 70% people supporting the war in Ukraine. And he was feeding the Russian people with that propaganda for 30 years. And that's not the only 30 years, because before that you have 80 years of Soviet Union, when it was a pure tyranny, and here is a pure tyranny. And people, it's like now they say that we came to bring you peace. It's like in George Orwell's 1984. So who would believe anything that comes from Russia today?
Я коли це починав, я був злий, тому що я дивився американські новинні передачі, ну це не новини навіть, це такі передачі з думками людьми, особливо на каналі Fox News, я не знаю, чи ти чув про таке. Якщо дивитися на історію консерваторів в Америці, ну я не проти консерваторів, хоча я з ними рідко голосую. Ну я сам, якщо говорити чесно, я сам в декількох сферах консерватор. Я думаю, що, напевно, всі такі, одна партія не може відповідати за всі погляди людини. Але я дивився, як республіканці, які мали бути ніби проти комунізму, проти тероризму, проти авторитарних режимів, починали повторювати англійською мовою всі промови Путіна. Особливо цей Такер Карлсон. І з демократів така Tulsi Gabbard. І я просто був в шоці, я думаю, як це може бути в нашій державі, в Америці. Ну, хоча, звичайно, Америка, вона не свята, далеко не свята. Вона починали свою конституцію з ухвалення рабовласництва. Але було навіть в тих документах надія, що прагнення до кращого. Так? І ми намагаємося з своїми законодавствами і своєю історією міняти ті погані риси, ті трагедії і якось створити краще життя. Я думав, треба почати англійською мовою. Ну, хоча я один якийсь там єдиний адвокат. Я знаю українську мову, я знаю, що відбувається в Україні, я можу передати це, англійська моя рідна, я можу це передати так, щоб американці зрозуміли, і це ніби моя мета. Тому я з тобою розмовляю і записую ці розмови.
Супер, дуже дякую тобі, що дав можливість поговорити, тому що я українською, що ти кажи, що мені робити. Ну, тобто...
Let's switch. Let's go to English.
Let's switch, yeah, but...
And I'll put English, you know what, I'll put English subtitles under what I just said. So you were talking about your friends were translating news.
Yeah, and they received a request from BBC, and they wanted to have some information about people that are volunteering today that join Ukrainian army. And so the information was provided, and then we've seen this in this news that was created, and they were talking about Ukrainian teenagers joining Ukrainian army. So it's like it's a totally different, message that we wanted to share. Besides, they don't know the real situation here when you can be mobilized. It's like from 18, right? And it's a law. You need to obey the law. But it was like highlighted like something that Ukrainian army is, I don't know, attracting really young boys and so on. So this is ridiculous. And that's how, unfortunately, and this is BBC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, if there's a phrase in English, if it bleeds, it leads. Okay. So the news media, even in the West, has become a clickbait, sensationalized, sort of for-profit model business, instead of informing the public about the information they need to make proper decisions about who they're going to vote for, where they're going to spend their money, and what they're going to know, or how they're going to formulate their opinions. So I'm going to go off on a rant here, because you take this tiny kernel of truth and you listen to these avatar covered anonymous bots, trolls on social media, or these or these useful idiot talking heads on TV, who say something like, Ukraine has formalized the Azov battalion, and there's Nazis who are roaming the streets and waving Nazi flags and creating havoc. Now, are there white supremacist Nazis in uniform fighting for the Ukrainian army? Maybe. Are there white supremacist Nazi sympathizers in the US Army who are, not telling people what their true beliefs are? Of course. Is there racism in America? Yes. Is there racism in Ukraine? Yes. Is there racism in every single country in the world because human beings are terrible? Yes. However, how many people are in the Azov battalion? 900? How many people were in Ukraine before Vladimir Putin started bombing maternity hospitals? 44 million, 45 million? So if 10 to 20% of the people in this, not surprisingly right-wing sympathizing elite battalion who are fighting the Russians have Nazi sympathies, is that so surprising? Maybe not. Is it significant within the broader picture of what's happening? No. And if someone who is a Nazi sympathizer, I'll let you, I just want to say this one thing. If someone is a Nazi sympathizer and he or she commits a crime against someone based on hate, regardless, even if it's not based on hate, even if they commit a crime against someone, that person should be punished under the full force of the law. And I think that probably 99% of Ukrainians, or 99% of the world, agree with that. Yeah. I'm sorry.
I would say that even, when you say that those peoples are Nazi sympathizers, it's like very rough generalization, because people need to understand what does it mean, that what is the history and the context, and you just like equal two things that are not equal actually, because all the idea that those people have there, they want Russia to fuck off. Sorry for my French, but okay. That's the main idea, that we just don't want, this invasion, and that's it. But anyway, so I think that this layer and level of informational war, it is really crucial, and I hope that you guys, that Western, people in the US, in Great Britain, in other journalists, they will start talking about Ukraine with Ukrainians, with someone who can represent, what is happening here. Because otherwise, and I can, this, in many cases, you will fall in the under the influence of Russian propaganda and narratives, because they have a lot of money, and for many years they were sponsoring lots of media across the world to build a certain knowledge about Ukraine as a failed state. That's
so everyone knows the story of Ivan Demyanuk, right? Ukrainian immigrant to the United States. He lived in Ohio. He was accused of being Ivan the Terrible, a Nazi camp guard who murdered Jews. It became clear later that he wasn't that individual, but he may have been, and we don't know for sure, but he may have just been a camp guard or a ditch digger at a camp, given a uniform by the Nazis. And, you know, in the alternative, it's you starve to death, or here you put on this uniform and you walk around the perimeter of the camp. Now, I'm not justifying that. Faced with the choice of being complicit in the murder of innocents and living yourself, you could even make the argument, and it's a good argument, that you're a coward if you do that, right? That you should face some kind of consequences for helping the Nazis, right? And if that was the case, I don't know the story. I wasn't there, obviously. I wasn't born then. But if we're going to hold people to the standard, to the legal precedent that the German government has set of finding people who are now in their 90s who had some low-level complicity with the Nazi regime, fair, then look at this percentage of people in Russia now who, okay, they want to live and survive like everyone else, sure, but their government is committing atrocities. And if they're supporting it, then are they not equally equally responsible, just the same as those people being hunted down by the German government today?
There is these two concepts that people were discussing here: the concept of collective responsibility and shared responsibility. So what we see today and what we're saying that is the second one. It's the shared responsibility. So Russians that do not oppose this government now or before, you know, and even if they do this now, they still have this shared responsibility, because if they would, you know, fight for democracy there, if they would build institutions, this war wouldn't happen. And now, you know, we are talking about the war, but really people are dying. Rockets are flying, you know, from Belarus, from Ukraine, from the Black Sea. They are attacking like just ordinary people because they exhausted their, you know, military potential, and they, you know, they're just trying to win the war with help of terror. They want to negotiate, having, you know, this from the positions of power, but they are weak. This is the sign of their weakness. And I pray, I hope that our government, which by the way I'm very surprised of, Mr. Zelensky, and God give him helps and strength and wisdom to nail down this. I don't want to use this word, but nail down this, you know, this Putin and this regime, and win the war.
Well,
I didn't vote for him, but now I support him, and I pray that he will have enough wisdom, you know, not to step back and not to compromise, because we are in a strong position. Russia has already lost this war. The only thing that people are dying, and that's really painful. But yeah, so
he played the president on TV, and he won over 70% of the vote. I argued, even though I have no right to vote in Ukraine, I argued that голосувати за Зеленського – це те саме, що ходити на прийом до доктора Хауса. You know, voting for Zelensky is the same as getting an appointment with Dr. House. It's a TV show. However, you're right. He's transformed into a Churchill-like figure weeks ago, people were still criticizing him, and none now, and it's amazing. He go ahead.
But look, I will not talk for all the Ukrainians, but when the war is over, I will continue criticizing the government if they are not right and doing the wrong things. That's the nature here. We were fighting for this right in 2004 and in 2014, and we will be doing that. That is what we are different on a DNA level from Russians, but now we are united as never. And this is like, I'm very grateful for this. We are really united. 2 days ago, people from Mykolaiv, it's near the sea, southern part of Ukraine. Mother and her daughter, my age approximately, they came here for one night, then to move to Poland. And I was asking Lyudmila, the mother, what are people saying? How people are interpreting this situation now? Okay, and she said before that people were like split. They were divided because some of them they were okay, we're Ukraine. Some other okay, well Russia, we are more with Russia and so on. But she said it's an incredible transformation just in 2 days. That the Mykolaiv is now united as never. So thank you, Putin, for making something that none of Ukrainians could do in 30 years. You did that, and thank you for that. This will actually ruin your empire.
You know, it's interesting because I noticed this sort of occurred to me the other day. I was talking to a Polish friend, and I was saying, he was asking me about whether or not, has the West abandoned us? Has the West abandoned Ukraine? And I was thinking about this, and I thought, no, we're just like Putin. We are mistaking discord or debate or democracy for disunity. And like you were saying with the people in Mykolaiv, some had sympathies towards Russia, some had sympathies towards Ukraine, and then they're attacked by Putin, and suddenly they're united around the concept of this republic, of a democratic republic, Ukraine, which in 30 years has elected 6 presidents, where in the time frame when the rulers of Russia and Belarus you can count them on one hand.
Yeah.
And really it's Putin.
But 3 fingers, 2 fingers, I don't know.
Yeah. Right. None of the elections are real in Belarus and in Russia. There is no democracy. You're punished for saying that this is a war. They throw you in a hole if you call it a war. And the fact that in the West and in Ukraine, the democratic spirit lives in that people can disagree and still have the same cause, which is one country, one democratic country where the people have the right to live how they want, is evidence in itself of you, for example, someone who lives in Lviv, the only province that did not go for Zelensky in the last election. You didn't vote for him, but he's your president. And when he does heroic good things, you're heartened by that. You love it. You champion it. And if he does something you disagree with, you criticize him. It's normal. It's normal, yeah. And it's the way the world should work.
Yeah, there are a lot of rooms for improvements here in terms of democracy, for instance, and none of the presidents on those
in the United States also, by the way. I'll give you examples.
Okay, but none of these presidents have done this really crucial thing that should be done here. I'm talking about the судова система. It's the
jurisprudence. You're talking about the courts being impartial,
yeah,
and
yeah,
fair. There
Yeah,
being the rule of law. In other words, this is the law,
this
and
is
it
the
doesn't
rule.
matter who's in charge.
Absolutely, yeah. Rule of law, the courts, the system of courts it wasn't transformed. We were expecting to have this reform here, but it wasn't conducted. Unfortunately, none of them did that, and that's like the basis. Because if this is institutionalized, right? So how to say it? So if it's
Implemented.
Like okay, good word, implemented, then it's we have transparent rules for everyone. This is the rule of law, and this will bring investors, this will bring help the economics and so on and so on, and none of them did that. So there are a lot of room for improvements, and we are on the curve here, but people are dying today for having this rule of law, for being part of civilized world. People died in 2014, and unfortunately we didn't, neither Poroshenko nor Zelensky didn't implement this court system, this rule of law, unfortunately. And I don't know why. There could be different motives, but you can imagine that now we have war with Russia, but before that, in a peaceful time, we already have this impact of Russia and lots of spies and agents working here and trying to distract all the reform, to trying not to implement lots of things and lots of to build lots of institutions and so on. So every time we were under pressure, even after 2014, lots of things were done here, but we're still on the curve. And we hope that after these events, when we win, we'll become a part of EU family. We will become a part of NATO, because this is written in our constitution that we want mover there. So we are, this is our direction, and no one can stop us. If Russia has this ambition, so they have this request to Ukraine not to be part of NATO, fuck off, Russia. Especially now, I'm sorry, pardon my French, but you are not the one who will tell us how to live in our country.
It means
and that's what we are fighting for.
It means the same thing in English, and you're right. That's what you're fighting for. I want to air some dirty laundry here, because I think it's necessary. So Poroshenko failed to reform the court system, to make it impartial, to bring forward the rule of law, and it bit him in the ass, because up until a few weeks ago, he was being investigated for treason, for buying gas from the so-called separatist regions of Ukraine during the last 8 years of war before this tragedy happened. And Zelensky's administration was a part of that. And it was, in my view, as a Westerner, repeating the same mistake. It's the same thing that Yanukovych did with his predecessor leading up to the Revolution of Dignity. And you think Ukrainian civil society is so far beyond these idiocies that the ruling class and the oligarchs are still doing, they're still playing this game of we're fighting amongst each other over control of Ukraine. And yes, we're on this general trajectory towards democracy, but underneath all of that is this roiling bit of corruption that's still going on. And yeah, eventually we'll get it. And every time we have an election, the guy who wins is the guy who says, I'm going to stop the corruption. That's why incumbents never win in Ukraine, except for Kuchma, and he was running against a communist. So when I look at that and I think, okay, but now, a couple of weeks later, Poroshenko and Zelensky are working together. And I think to myself, well, this war has to be won. You must win it. Thank God that you're united now. When you do win, and when this is over, you have to stay united in the idea of, not on everything, obviously, because it's a democracy. You can disagree on all kinds of policy positions, but that there has to be rule of law and no tolerance for corruption, regardless of who's in charge, is absolutely paramount, because all of this death and destruction and all of these things that have united Ukrainians against the terror of Russia and the terrorist regime that's killing children and mothers and bombing maternity hospitals will be for nothing if Ukraine doesn't emerge as a true democracy upholding the rule of law after this.
Danilo, you're right. I understand this, and maybe this will not go on air, but I was thinking exactly the same after the Revolution of Dignity, because one of our acquaintances, friends of mine, we were studying together at Warsaw for 1 month. He was shot there, and I mean on Maidan. And when I thought that after that we should, we will be united, and we will fight corruption, and we will do everything that we can. But it's really hard for people to change. That's the nature of human beings. But still now the pain is so big, it's so deep, and we have such a support from the US, from Great Britain, and other countries, because Russia was making their impact on Ukraine from their side, but we had really someone to rely on from the other part of the world, and this was really helpful. And I hope that together we'll go to the next level, and we'll have this rule of law, because otherwise why people are dying. But it's like deja vu for me.
Speaking of deja vu, I don't want to come off as some pedantic Westerner.
And look, I don't know if maybe we're too far from war in our conversation. Maybe this is just not relevant, but you
no,
asked.
Well, here's the thing. You're not that far from war. I mean, Yavoriv, right? They were bombing. The Russians were just bombing. It's what, 18 miles from the Polish border.
Yeah. So it's maybe I need to check.
I hope that you remain far from war, but I want to make something clear too, because, yes, obviously, I think all Ukrainians want, once they win this war, once this is over, they shouldn't, and I don't think they will, tolerate any level of corruption or unfair dealing in their country. I can't imagine that even happening now. There won't even be a debate on that. I mean, you can talk about how much your tax money will go to what part of the budget, but as far as taking money for bribes or allowing judges to be paid off or something along those lines, that I can't imagine that being tolerated anymore.
We will have a lot of angry Ukrainians, and Russian army already knows this. I wouldn't recommend you to, how to say this in English, dratувати to angry Ukrainians.
Don't poke the beast.
Don't poke the beast, right? Because people will be really, really angry. They've suffered, and if someone will give bribe or something, they will be really, and they will react adequately to that. And I hope that those bastards that want to build corruption here, they will understand and they will fear. And this,
and this is a call too to us in the West, that we have been complacent for too long. We haven't been living up to our values. Now, you can argue that maybe we haven't ever truly lived up to our values. I mean, look at our history. Look at the way the United States government has treated Native Americans, Black people, other people of color. I mean, World War II, we won World War II. We defeated the Nazis at the same time that FDR was interning Japanese Americans on American soil. We're not without blame, but that doesn't change the fact that right is fucking right, excuse me.
Yeah,
and that in this war, just like in that one, you have to defeat the terrorists. Now, in the fog of war, there's no justification for doing things like interning Japanese Americans. There's no justification for having a segregated American army where there are black regiments and white regiments. There's no justification for a police officer murdering George Floyd in 2020. There's no justification for a lot of things that Western governments do.
Mhm.
However, when they are right, and when we're talking about protecting innocent people and stopping a tyrannical monster like Vladimir Putin, there can be no question. And this is why with my small voice and with your voice, I want to be able to put this out, and hopefully somebody hears it. And if one person changes their mind that, hey, let's not focus on these Azov people right now. If there's some idiot Nazi there, we'll deal with him. But what is absolutely pressing right now is to stop the Putin regime and to stop this bloodshed and to stop this terror.
Yeah, exactly. And really, thank you for support, because I have a feeling that we are not alone. I have a feeling that we are with people of the whole civilized world, and we are united by values, and we feel this support. Really, my message was that if you want to hear the truth, you at least need to understand what is happening here on the ground. And if you are talking about some Ukrainians, hey, go and ask Ukrainian and invite him to your TV show or to the interview, and so on and so on. And if you don't know someone in Ukraine, talk to Danilo, to Dan, or talk to me, and I will provide you the people that are experts in their area, and they are willing to have. And by the way, we would recommend to have this live show, so it happens like in a live version, so that the information is not cut and made in the in the narrative that is common for media or for Russian propaganda. Just talk to people and see what they will say, hear it, and this will help you, because this will help everyone, because we are united, and we feel that we are united with the Western world as well. Despite the sky is not closed for now, despite some other things, despite the slow reaction. And this slow reaction, it means like another hospital or another school bombed by Russians. But anyway, we feel the support, and we need more of that support.
Andrei, thank you so much for taking the time to talk to me. I like your idea about a live broadcast, and I think we've got to figure out how to make that happen. And I hope that we get to talk more, because I really, despite everything that's going on, I know this may sound trivial. I know that, you have people and friends and loved ones that are in harm's way. You yourself are in Ukraine. I'm watching from afar as my friends and loved ones are dealing with this horrible thing that I can't even imagine. And I feel like I can't do anything but talking to you, sharing your thoughts, putting out there into the world the truth and the perspective of people on the ground in Ukraine is the least I can do. And I'm so glad I have this opportunity to do it. Thank you.
Thank you.